I bought my first house last summer, and I found a room that wasn't supposed to exist.
Hey, welcome back to the channel.
I'm playing Minecraft right now, and while we build, I'm gonna tell you real horror stories that people actually shared online. No demons, no religious stuff, just stories that feel way too real. All right, here's the first one. Last summer, I bought my first home. I was working on drawing up a floor plan and started with the dimensions listed on our county auditor's site. That's when I noticed something weird. The measurements didn't match the basement layout in one spot. It looked like I was missing a section roughly 5 feet by 8 feet right off a storage area. So I went down to check it out. When I got into the storage room, I noticed part of the drywall was already broken, like someone had opened it before. I pushed it in and it opened right up. I shined my phone light inside, expecting to find something crazy, but there was nothing. Just dust and a ton of spider webs. What freaked me out was that the hidden space had a light fixture, a light switch, an electric outlet, and even a small hose coming from the ceiling. At first, I thought it was some kind of grow room. But then I noticed the storage room door had a clasp, like it could be locked from the outside. There were metal screens on either side of the door, like tiny windows, and there were deep scratches on the drywall about 4 feet up. At the time, I told myself maybe someone kept a dog down there. I tried not to overthink it. A month or two later, we moved in and started settling in. I decided to turn that storage room into a practice space for my band. We put up foam to help the acoustics, knocked down the wall, closing off the hidden space, cleaned everything, carpeted it, and used the hidden area to store our gear. That's when the weird stuff started. We kept seeing movement out of the corner of our eyes. Sometimes I'd notice a light in the next room go dark in my peripheral vision, and the dog would go insane. Then I'd look, and the light would be on like nothing happened. It started happening a lot. And more than once, I woke up to a loud whispering voice saying things like, "I'm here," or "Miss me," or "Hey, you." Every time it happened, the dog would start barking like crazy. Then one night, I was walking upstairs from the basement with a load of laundry. I had just turned off all the lights behind me, and right as the basement went completely dark, I heard a sharp screech directly behind me, like a fork scraping across a ceramic plate. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could, and I didn't look back. I know it sounds ridiculous for a grown man to be scared of the dark, but I've never been afraid of the dark. Still, that basement feels wrong at night, and when the lights are off, it feels like something down there knows I'm leaving. The second story is about a man named Jack. After a brutal divorce, he buys a cheap old Victorian house for a fresh start, but in the basement, he finds a hidden room with a mirror that doesn't show his reflection, only a strange family that shouldn't exist. I'm Jack. I'm 34, and life's been rough lately. After my divorce, money got tight fast. I've been working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. My daughter, Emma, lives with her mom, and I only get to see her every other weekend. Buying a house felt impossible until I found this old Victorian for a ridiculously low price. It had charm, even with the creaky floors and the obvious age. To me, it felt like a second chance, a fresh start, a place where maybe Emma could stay over more often. Everything was fine until I found the hidden room in the basement. I discovered it while clearing out old furniture. I noticed a slight draft, cold air moving behind a bookshelf. That didn't make sense, so I pulled the dusty shelf aside. Behind it was a narrow door. It looked like it had been there forever, like the house had been hiding it on purpose. I forced it open, and behind it was a dark, narrow staircase going down. I grabbed a flashlight and started descending. Every step echoed off the stone walls, and the air got colder the deeper I went. At the bottom was a small room. It smelled damp, musty, like it hadn't been opened in years. But what caught my attention was the mirror. An old, ornate mirror leaning against the far wall. The frame was carved with twisted, grotesque figures, faces, and shapes that didn't look human. In the flashlight's flicker, it almost looked like they were moving. I stepped closer, and that's when I realized something was wrong. I couldn't see my reflection. Instead, I saw a different family. A man, a woman, 2 children. They stood in a room that looked almost exactly like my basement, but everything about them felt wrong. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothing and their eyes were wide and vacant. The way they stared straight at me sent chills down my spine. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I got closer, staring at them, trying to understand what I was seeing, and I reached out and touched the mirror. Except it didn't feel like glass. My hand pressed against something cold and solid. It was the woman's face. Her skin felt hard, like porcelain, ice cold. I pulled my hand back instantly, horrified. Then the figures in the mirror began to move. Their eyes followed me, slowly, deliberately, like they were alive. The man stepped forward, raising his hand as if he was pressing it against the surface from the other side, and I heard whispering. Faint at first, muffled, but enough to make my blood run cold. They were saying my name. Jack, Jack, Jack. The children's faces twisted into these sick, unnatural grins. Their eyes turned black, empty, soulless. That was enough. I stumbled backward and ran. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the hidden door shut, and shoved the bookshelves back into place, like I could erase what I'd seen. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, some creepy art project, anything other than the truth. But deep down, I knew it wasn't fake. For days after that, I avoided the basement completely, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Strange things started happening around the house. Doors creaked open on their own. Cold drafts hit me in the middle of the night, and sometimes I'd hear whispering voices, just barely out of reach, like someone was speaking from another room. Tonight, it got worse. I woke up to knocking on my bedroom door. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard it again, louder this time. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 3 a.m. I forced myself out of bed and stepped toward the door. My hand was shaking as I reached for the knob, but I froze when I heard the voices. It was the family from the mirror. They were right outside my bedroom door, and they sounded angry. Jack, Jack, the man said, his voice low and menacing. Let us in. Then the children chimed in, their voices sweet in the worst possible way. We just want to play. I backed away, my heart pounding. The knocking grew louder, more frantic. The door rattled like something was trying to break through. I'm writing this now because I don't know how much time I have left. They're not trapped in the mirror anymore. They're here, and they want something from me. The door won't hold much longer. I can hear the wood splintering, their voices getting louder, closer, more excited. They keep shouting my name, and I don't think I'm getting out of this. If anyone finds this, don't come here. Don't make the same mistake I did. Stay away from hidden rooms, and whatever you do, never, ever touch the mirror. The third story is about a man renovating his basement for his pregnant wife when he finds a hidden door inside the wall leading to a concrete room with a giant mirror, a chair, and a camera pointed straight at it. This happened last night and this morning. I moved into this house about 2 months ago. I've been doing renovations with my friend John, trying to make the place more suitable for my future family. My wife is 6 months pregnant, so I've been pushing myself hard to get everything done. Last night, I was working on the TV room in the basement when I noticed something I'd somehow never paid attention to before. A closet built into the space under the stairs. I opened it, and that's when I saw something even stranger. On the left side, concealed inside the wall, there was another door. It's hard to explain, but it wasn't a normal door you'd see right away. It was hidden so well that the only reason I noticed it was because there was a crack between the wall and the frame, just enough to reveal a tall rectangle that clearly didn't belong. At the time, I didn't open it. I didn't even realize how weird it was, not until later that night. Because the previous owner gave me a full tour of the house when I bought it. He never mentioned the closet, never mentioned the hidden door, And thinking back, he seemed like he was actively trying to avoid that entire room. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing scratching noises coming from the basement. I told myself it was probably mice, and I promised I'd set some traps in the morning. Early this morning, I woke up after maybe 5 hours of sleep. My wife left for work. I called John, and we went down to the basement together. I mentioned the door to John, and the second I did, he got curious. He immediately asked if we could open it. I went to grab mousetraps and a flashlight, and from that moment on, everything changed. We tried to open the door, but it wouldn't move. It felt like it was glued into the wall. We had to use a crowbar just to get it loose. Even then, it only opened halfway before jamming, like it didn't want us to get in. John looked at me. I looked at John. He was the one who wanted to open it, so I told him he should go first. And he actually did. John squeezed himself through the narrow gap, barely fitting. I handed him the flashlight, then I forced myself to follow him inside. The room was wrong. The ceiling was low, maybe around 5'7". The space was long and wide, like someone had built a private tunnel room under my house. The floor and walls were all concrete, cold, bare, industrial. And at the far end of the room, one entire wall was covered by a giant mirror. It wasn't just a mirror hanging there, it covered the entire wall. I placed a mousetrap on the floor, mostly just to give myself something normal to do. Then I moved closer to John. That's when I noticed he wasn't moving. He was standing there, staring straight ahead like he'd gone blank. I followed his gaze, and my stomach dropped. In the middle of the room was an old, dirty computer chair, and facing that chair was a video camera pointing directly at it, like someone had been recording whoever sat there. John slowly turned to look at me. I looked back at John. We didn't even have to say anything. We both had the same thought. Grab the camera and get out. So we did. We grabbed it and rushed out of that room as fast as we could. Once we were out, we slammed the hidden door shut and ran upstairs. I felt like a terrified kid sprinting up those stairs, and honestly, I was. Upstairs, we inspected the camera. It was an old camcorder, the kind that uses videotapes. We opened it, and inside, there was a tape. I'm writing this right now because I don't know what else to do. Tomorrow, we're going to get a cable so we can transfer the footage onto my computer and see what's on it. But right now, I can hear the scratching again, coming from the basement. The next story happened 3 years ago, and to this day, the guy who lived it still has no explanation. Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm playing Minecraft right now, and while we build, I'm going to tell you real horror stories people have shared online. No demons, no religious stuff, just the kind of horror that feels way too real. All right, let's get into it. I moved into a cheap studio apartment in an old building about 3 years ago, and I still don't have an explanation for what happened there. The place wasn't great, but it was mine. It had that old building vibe. Creaky wooden floors, weird pipes in the walls, and a landlord who felt just sketchy enough to make me wonder if I'd made a mistake. The first weird thing happened on my very first night. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to this faint scratching sound. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the wall of my closet. I told myself it had to be mice, or maybe the pipes shifting, something normal. So I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But the scratching came back the next night, and the next. Every night like clockwork. Always faint. Always slow. Always deliberate. After a week of that, curiosity got the best of me. One night I got up, walked into the closet, and knocked on the wall. And something knocked back. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. For a second, I honestly thought I was about to throw up. And instead of doing the smart thing and backing away, I did something even dumber. I tapped again. But this time in a simple pattern. Tap, tap, pause, tap. And it copied me perfectly. That's when I was sure someone was in there. A squatter, somebody hiding in the walls. The next day, I contacted my landlord. I told him I was hearing scratching behind the closet wall and that someone or something was responding when I knocked. He didn't even look surprised. He just brushed me off and said, "That unit's been sealed for years. No one's in there." I asked him what he meant, and he just stared at me and said, "Mind your business." So, of course, I didn't. That weekend, I went out and bought a few basic tools. Nothing fancy, just enough to pry at the wooden panels inside the closet. It took me hours. The boards were old and stubborn, like they hadn't been touched in decades. But eventually, a section finally came loose. And behind it was a dark, narrow passageway leading straight into the apartment next door. Only there wasn't supposed to be an apartment next door. According to the building's layout, my unit was the last one on that floor. There shouldn't have been anything past my wall. And yet, there it was. A space no one acknowledged. I should have stopped right there. I should have sealed it back up and pretended I never saw it. But I didn't. I crawled through. The passage was cramped and dusty. The air smelled wrong, like old wood, mildew, and something rotting underneath it all. My phone flashlight barely cut through the darkness, but as I moved deeper inside, I started seeing things. A small mattress on the floor, empty food containers, rotten and half collapsed, piles of clothes that didn't even look that old. Someone had been living there. And then I saw the Polaroids. Dozens of them scattered across the floor. Pictures of people sleeping, close-ups of their faces, their hands, their feet sticking out from under blankets. I felt the blood drain out of my body. The walls of that hidden space were covered in more photos, some old and yellowing like they'd been there for years. And then I saw the newest one. The one that made my stomach drop so hard it felt like I was going to pass out. It was me, sleeping in my new apartment, taken from the night before. I don't even remember turning around. I don't remember crawling back through that passage. All I know is that I got back into my closet and slammed those panels into place like my life depended on it. I sealed that wall up so fast I split my fingers open. And I didn't care. I moved out the next day. I didn't wait for my lease to end. I didn't pack properly. I just left. I still don't know who was in there. The landlord refused to talk about it, and when I checked the building's records, there's never supposed to be another unit there. But sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night feeling like someone's watching me, and I swear I hear scratching. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments which story was the creepiest, and if you enjoyed this format, Reddit horror stories while playing Minecraft, tell me and I'll make more. If you want to read the original stories for yourself, I'll leave the links in the description. And if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.